Hello, BookThinkers family, and welcome to episode number 2 of the brand new podcast, BookThinkers, Life-Changing Books. During each episode, I interview some of the world's top authors, and as a listener, you can expect to discover new books, new mentors, and new resources that you can use to achieve more and to live better. In this episode, I have the pleasure to interview the author and entrepreneur, Russell Brunson. For the past 10 years, Russell has built a following of entrepreneurs in the millions. He has also sold hundreds of thousands of copies of his books and popularized the concept of sales funnels. After co-founding his business, Clickfunnels, which has done over 100 million in its first 3 years, Russell has become one of the internet's favorite entrepreneurs. I know he's one of mine. Our conversation touches on his book, Dotcom Secrets, some sales advice for everybody, and also some very funny yet very embarrassing wrestling stories from both my past experiences wrestling as well as his. BookThinkers family, please enjoy my conversation with Russell Brunson. Russell, thank you so much for joining the BookThinkers Life-Changing Books podcast. For those in my network that aren't familiar with your work, can you talk to us a little bit about who is Russell Brunson?
Yes, definitely. So I am a pretty normal, average guy. As you know, I'm a wrestler, which is, I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about that throughout this thing. But when I was actually wrestling in college, I met my beautiful wife. We got engaged, and then we were about to get married. And my dad was like, "So how are you going to support her? Are you going to quit wrestling? Or are you going to whatever?" I'm like, "No, I can't quit wrestling." He's like, "Well, how are you like?" Because at the time that they were kind of supporting me, he's like, "When you're married, you're a big kid now. Like you're in charge of your own life." And I was like, "Oh no, I don't even know what to do." And so I started scrambling. I had to figure out a way to make money because I don't want to quit wrestling. And so I started studying all sorts of things about how to make money on the internet. And that was, 18 years ago now. And
Wow.
so that kind of started me on this journey. And I spent the first 10 years or so, like learning how to do it and building up my own businesses. And we ended up launching companies, supplement companies and couponing companies and diet companies and like just all sorts of different companies and learning these principles of how we grow companies online. And it's almost 6 years ago now, we had this idea for a software company that basically would do what we were doing, right? Like we would build these sales funnels, which are similar to website, but a little different. But it was hard to make. We had to custom code all these things. And so I have an amazing business partner, and he built the first version of Clickfunnels, the software. About that time, I was writing my first book, Dotcom Secrets, which is teaching people these principles of sales funnels that married with the software. And we launched the book and the software within a couple months of each other, and the whole thing's gone crazy. It's been taken off. We have over 100,000 active customers using the platform now, and it's been the ride of a lifetime. And so I have the opportunity to talk to entrepreneurs. I'm obsessed with entrepreneurs and helping them get their idea, their product, their message out to the world. And that's kind of what we do. And we try to make tools and write books and things to make that process more simple for them. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, I love the introduction. And in the BookThinkers family audience, we do have a lot of entrepreneurs and we also have a lot of salespeople. And so I wanted to share with you that I've been a professional salesperson for the last 6 years working for somebody else. And now I'm getting into full-time BookThinkers mode and we're expanding the business. So I'm going to be a customer of yours. But what's interesting is that I've read about 40 sales books, cover to cover, every single word. I've studied them, I've practiced them. And for whatever reason, up until now, up until the preparation for our conversation, I didn't know anything about sales funnels. And so you are the sales funnel guy. Can you share with the BookThinkers family a little bit about what is a sales funnel and why can it help an entrepreneur or a salesperson become more successful?
Yeah, it's funny. You think about most salespeople by default, most of them are very extroverted, right? They go to people and start talking and they feel comfortable. And so most sales books are written from that format of like, hey, here's how you talk to the person, you resolve concerns and objections. And like, and that's how most sales things happen. Now, my background is I'm very actually super introverted. People don't believe that because I get on stage and I talk in front of a bunch of people. But in real life, like I'm awkward, I'm nervous, and I don't enjoy it at all. And so I had to figure out, like, if I want to make money, I got to sell stuff. But how do I do it without actually talking to humans? Because that's my dream, right? And so that's kind of how this whole thing started, was I trying to figure those things out. And what's interesting, a funnel is very, very similar to like a one-on-one sales presentation, right? You think about, most websites are kind of like a grocery store. You walk in and you're like, oh, there's a million different products and options. And they walk to this shelf and this shelf, and they're buying stuff on their own. And it's not guided though, right? That's what a website is. The sales funnel is very much like you walk to the front of the store and there's a salesperson there saying, hey, thanks for coming to our store. Have you ever been here before? Oh, cool. Like, can I get your email address? That way, if you leave or can't find you want, I can email you later and get a hold of you. They're like, sure. So they get the contact information. Then they're like, hey, Now you have your information. What are you actually looking for? And they're like, oh, well, I'm going camping this weekend. Like, oh, are you looking for a tent? Cool. The tent's over here. And they take you to that section. They get you the tent. And they're like, now you got the tent. What's the next thing you need? Like, if you're going camping, do you have sleeping bags? Like, oh, well, sleeping bags over here. And they take them and they walk you through a very customized sales process. So it's not just like, shooting a gun in the air, hoping that they can find all this stuff. It's a very strategic step-by-step process. And so it's basically taking selling, like face-to-face selling, and pulling yourself out of the equation. So if you ever come to any of my funnels, you'll notice it's like, there's me and I'm speaking to you as if we just met on the street, and I'm telling you a story, and I'm building a conversation and getting you excited, and I make you an offer, and then hopefully say yes. And if you say yes, then it goes to the next page. Like, cool, you bought the book. That means the next logical thing you need is this. And then it takes them through this customized sales process. And so that's kind of what a sales funnel is. And I figured out a lot of these things because I was awkward. I didn't know how to sell face-to-face. So how do I do this in a way where it's like, I can set up the process once, step away from it, and then just have people come and it sells for me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, whether I'm there or I'm not. And that's kind of where the whole methodology of sales funnels kind of originally came from.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. And I learned so much, like in your introductions that I've seen from other people introducing you, they call you a marketing genius and a sales genius. And I really think that you are, because you popularized sales funnels. You popularized the term and your business, Clickfunnels. And so now that I'm in the network, I'm in the network, you know what I mean? And I'm learning about this kind of
You
stuff.
can't get away from me now.
And, what's interesting too in the book is about that sales process. You get people to focus on one thing at a time, which is really important. And then once they've executed on one thing, then you move them to the next thing. And you talk a little bit about how the biggest mistake that entrepreneurs and salespeople make is once somebody executes on one sale, they either don't try to upsell them or they try to upsell them the same thing. So why is it important for people to upsell the next product? And do you have any other metaphors? Like you use the tent and now you might need a sleeping bag. What else? How else can people understand that concept a little bit more?
Yeah. It's funny because this took me a while to figure this out. I would, like, for example, so let's say a traditional sales funnel. Let's say I have a book about, in fact, this is the first time I kind of got it. I sold this book that showed 108 split tests that we had run in our company. So it's like this page versus this page, this ad versus this ad. And we had 108 like winners that we kind of put in this book. And it was a really cool book. And so people were buying it. So I was like, okay, if someone buys this book, it means they're interested in split testing, right? Like they've got to want more info on split testing. So the first upsell was like, hey, I have a $200 course. It's going to teach you how to split test and all sorts of stuff like that. And almost nobody bought it. And I was like, you just told me you're interested in split testing. Why are you not buying my split testing thing? And I couldn't figure it out. And I remember one of my friends, he actually went through my sales process, and then he messaged me. He's like, hey, just curious, how's your upsell doing? And before you tell me, I think it's probably it's not doing good, is it? I was like, how do you know that? Like, I didn't want to reveal to him that my thing was failing. And I was like, how do you know that? And he's like, you have to understand this principle. He's like, when somebody comes to your website, they have an itch, right? There's an itch they want scratched. And he talked about when he was messaging me, he was like, for example, let's say you want to get 6-pack abs. You're like, you're overweight, you're struggling. Like, I want abs. And so you go to a website that's selling you a book or an ebook or something about how to get abs. And you're like, yes, I'm going to get abs. So you get your credit card, you buy the product. And he's like, as soon as you've done that, that itch has been scratched. In their mind, like, I've got abs now. Like, I haven't even gone through the product yet, but I've solved that problem. I've got abs. This is amazing. And so next page, you're like, cool, you bought my ab ebook. Do you want my ab workout video program? And you're like, but I have abs. I just bought abs. Like, I'm good. Like, why would I buy the next thing? Like, I already scratched that itch. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so true. And he's like, yeah, I just bought split tests. Why would I buy more split tests? I don't need more of the same thing. I need the next thing. Like, what's the next logical thing somebody needs in your sales process? It's like going to the store, you buy a tent. You're like, sweet, you got a tent. You want another tent? You're like, I have a tent.
Yeah.
And so for us, it's really important for us to strategically think about that sales process. Like, hey, somebody who's bought this book on split tests, what's the next thing they need? Well, if they have split tests, the next thing they need is they need more traffic, right? Or they need more, or whatever the next logical thing is. Or if they just bought 6-pack abs, the next thing is like, what happens when you go to the grocery or when you go out to eat with your buddies and your friends, and you're at McDonald's or Burger King, and you're like, I need some food, but you're like, I don't know what to eat, and I want my abs. Like, well, here's the book that's going to show you exactly what you can order at fast food restaurants or whatever the thing is, right? Like the next logical thing. And so it's thinking through that journey of the customer in your mind, and then creating offers that match the next logical thing. And so for me, when I switched it from the split testing course to like a traffic course, it was like 20% of the customers bought the $200 traffic course, where before it was like a half of a percent bought the other one. And it was just like, I missed the logical sequencing. And anyways, when you think about it, it becomes really fun. And it's funny, back even like like for years, I mean, man, I can't imagine how much money I lost out on. I would just do random, if I had an upsell, I just, oh, here's a random thing and another thing. And the more I realized, it's just like, okay, I'm on a journey with them. What's the pain they're in? What's they're coming to me for? They're scratching that itch. What's the next thing? What's the next logical thing I got to solve for them? And what's the next logical thing? You know, in a perfect world, every time you sell something, it solves that problem, but it opens up the next problem, right? Like if I convince you need a sales funnel, you're like, sweet, I need sales funnels. I'm like, okay, now you got to go learn how to code it, or you can use Clickfunnels to make it. And you're like, oh, I need Clickfunnels. You get Clickfunnels. You're like, okay, I have Clickfunnels now. Now what? It's like, well, you need to get traffic to your funnels. Like, oh, and so like every problem you solve opens up the next problem that you can then solve for your customer as well.
Wow, what a fantastic lesson. I think everybody needs to go back and listen to that again, because upselling it's often overlooked, right? And a lot of people don't pay attention to that logical sequencing of the upsell and the product. I think it's so interesting, just to hammer it into everybody's heads again, that every time you sell something, you're creating another problem that needs to be solved. And so that's fantastic. Well, let's transition now to a little bit about this book right here, Dotcom Secrets. I know that some of our conversations have been about this book already, but what I really found interesting, and I know everybody will love this story, is that about halfway through the book, on chapter 11, on secret number 11, book funnels, you talk about your funnel loving chiropractor. You guys were sitting at a Carl's Jr. and you had an epiphany. What was that epiphany? Can you share that with everybody?
Yeah. So he's a chiropractor. He's also one of my close friends, and he, you know, he's kind of in this world a little bit. He dabbles here and there, and we're sitting there watching our kids play on the playground, eating the most disgusting, unhealthy food known to man, and loving every minute of it. And then he was like, you know, the difference between you and like Tony Robbins or Brendan Burchard, who are both my friends. And I was like what? Like I always thought it was like kind of, you know, he's like, they seem more legit because they've got a book. And I was like, oh, but like, oh, and he's like, yeah, like I can't say anything else. Like, like they have a book and you don't. And I was like, dang it. And I'd been thinking about writing. In fact, I own the domain name Dotcom Secrets for like a decade. Like I knew someday I want to write a book called this because it's like,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know why. I just never did it. And there's a million mental reasons why people don't write a book. But I think most people want to, right? Like I think all of us come to Earth and we're here and we're learning all these things. And it's like part of our role in life is like assemble all the stuff we learn and put it into a framework we can then share with people after us, right? And so I'd spent 10 years thinking about this and brainstorming and trying things out. And it was like, I need to write a book. So that night is when I started the process for writing the Dotcom Secrets. The very first book I wrote was because of that experience of him making fun of me. So,
And you said it took about a year for you to complete the book?
yeah. It's funny. Some people can write books really fast. I've got friends who go to a cabin for a weekend. They got a book. For me, it's a big process. I mean, every book so far has taken me years, probably actually the fastest. Usually they're about 18 months per book for me because there's so much that goes into it. Yeah, so that's how it took. I'm along with the first one.
Yeah, and then you said it was like the coolest feeling in the world holding that book once it finally got to you. And now you have 4.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've got a lot of other ebooks that live out there in the universe. So
There's
that's
something about that when you get the first book, like the publisher always sends you like a box of like, I don't know, 5 or 8 or something like that. And you get it and you know it's coming. Also it shows up and you're like, do I open it? Do I not? Like, oh, and I remember getting it and like holding, like, I remember just like, I don't know, like holding it the first time and just being like, oh my gosh, this is like a decade of my life, like 10 years of like trial. I always tell people you have to earn a book, right? Like 10 years of me earning this book to be able to put it out there. It's like, this is going to shortcut people a decade of like trial and error that they can just like, oh, here's the download. This is what I figured out. Like just start from here instead of going through all the headaches I went through to get here.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned it too. We have a lot of people talk about that condensing decades into days metaphor. And
Yeah.
it's attributed to, well, I know a lot of different people talk about it. Tony talks about it. You talk about it. Just had Jim Quick on the other day. He was talking about it. And it's such a powerful lesson. Like you can really condense decades of Russell's life into days and then execute on it using the tools that he's built for you. And all of a sudden you can make some money. Although your first funnel will probably fail, but then you'll get to make some money.
Eventually you get there.
Yeah. And so, all right, let's see. What do I have on here next? Well, do you have any specific recommendations for first-time authors outside of the fact that it'll take a long time and you need to build up experience? Because I know the BookThinkers family audience does have a lot of people who are aspiring authors and they are successful business owners and they want to share those lessons with people. So is there anything that maybe is a little less cliche or outside of the box that you've experienced or that you give to your friends or family when they say, hey, should I write a book?
I think The biggest thing is, and I think it's a tragedy, like most people write a book and they sell a couple hundred copies and it kind of ends there. And I think, the chapter 11, I think you said about book funnels is understanding like you can stimulate growth of a book. Like a book doesn't just come like, oh, it's a great book, so it virally gets spread. Some books do that, right? But in fact, I'm really good friends with Rachel Hollis, who last year had I think the only person that outsold her was Michelle Obama, right? She sold more books than anybody else in the world, and just like became this like household brand. Like everyone I know, anyway, it's crazy. But even her, like, it wasn't just like I put out a book and everyone passed it along. Like it was, you have to like figure out like, how are you selling this? What's the marketing strategy? Like what's the process and how it works? And just, I would love to share this with people so they get like a glimpse of this, right? So I've got my 3 books and then a workbook. So the Dotcom Secrets, Expert Secrets, and Traffic Secrets. And for example, right now, we still sell all 3 of the main core books. We sell anywhere from 1,000 to 3,000 or 4,000 of these books a week. But it's all profitable up front. So the way it works is we put someone through a book funnel, right? So if you go to dotcomsecrets.com and you buy the book, there's the book. And then of course, I'm going to upsell you the audiobook. And then there's the box set. And there's things that we take you through in that funnel. But as of last time I checked a week or 2 ago, we were spending about $18 to $19 in Facebook ads and Instagram and Google and YouTube to sell 1 copy of the book that we give away for free. So it's like, you look at that, you're like, oh, Russell's losing money. He's a moron, right? He spends $20 to make $7.95 shipping. You still got to pay for the book and the printing. But then the funnel happens, right? And so what's cool is that on average, it fluctuates throughout the month and traffic source. But on the low end, we make about 40, on the high end, about $70 for every per customer inside the book funnel. So it means I'm spending $20 to sell a book. I'm making $40 in the book funnel immediately. So I actually make money. So every time I sell a book, I make $40 after all the ad costs and everything. And so unlike a lot of authors who have it on Amazon and they're out there and they're like, they're doing things to try to sell, they can't like stimulate growth, where we can go in and just buy ads all day long and sell thousands of copies a week of the books consistently. Dotcom Secrets have been out for 5 years now. It's just we continually keep selling them because of that. So it's understanding that these funnels we're talking about, they aren't just like a nice way to make money. It's a way to get your message out, a way to get your book out, a way to get your thing out to more people, is understanding these principles. Because if you can make a book funnel that's self-liquidating, so you're profitable, every book you sell, you make money, even if you're spending $20 to sell a book, and then you're getting your message out there, like that's the power. And then, those who know, I own a company called Clickfunnels, and Clickfunnels, people think it's like, oh, you drive tons of traffic to Clickfunnels, but I'm like, we don't. We drive traffic to the books. People read the books, and then we tell them later in the email sequence about Clickfunnels. And so it doesn't cost us money to grow Clickfunnels either, which is kind of confusing until you read the book. It makes more sense when you see how the funnels work, but it gives you the ability to grow any company. And I've seen it now with people with supplement companies using this model to blow up some supplement companies, software companies, hedge funds, like everything you can dream of. This process works to grow these companies really, really easily. So it's kind of fun.
It does. And you mentioned Rachel Hollis. She and her husband are now putting out a workout app, and they've got all these other things that they've got going on. So they're definitely disciples of the sales funnel.
Oh,
and,
yeah. They're cool.
Yeah.
It's funny. She actually, in quarantine, I sent them a copy of the box set, and Rachel read it, Dotcom Secrets. She was texting me like every hour, like, how have I not known about funnels? Like, this is like, wow, like freaking out. She was so excited about the whole process. And I was like, I know, I keep telling you this thing, but it took her sitting down reading the book to be like, oh, I see how it works now. And I was telling them, I'm like, can you imagine the Hollis Co., which is already blowing up like crazy, like applying sales funnels? It's going to be like game over. Like I'm super jealous.
Well, I had a similar experience, man. I mean, when I was going through Dotcom Secrets, I have a business partner at BookThinkers, and I was taking so many pictures and sending him specific pieces of information or specific secrets that I wanted him to learn about. And he was a little overwhelmed, and he's just like, okay, I'm reading the book. Like, where should I start? I said, the whole thing. You have to read the whole thing. And now I have 2 more books in the workbook to go. So I'm super excited as well. And so let's talk about another specific thing from the book, the attractive character identities. So I know that there are 4 that you put in the book, and by choosing one of those and kind of filtering your communication through that, it helps you communicate more efficiently with your audience. And so each reader of the book normally identifies with one of those 4 attractive character identities, and they can change over time, just like they did for you. And so when I was reading through those, I identified with the reporter. And that's a good representation of exactly what we're doing right now. I'm having a conversation with a brilliant entrepreneur. I'm learning these lessons. I'm putting them into my life. and I'm relaying those out to my audience, my bigger community. And it helps me grow, but it also helps me become more credible so that I can move to one of those other identities over time. And so why do you think being a reporter is a good way to start if you're excited about the business niche that you're in?
Yeah. So as you saw in the book, like I started the same way. I was a reporter. That's how I got started. I think in almost every case, that's where somebody should start, because initially this is the problem that I think a lot of times authors and experts and people have is they come in and they've got their view of the world, right? A good example of this is I'm friends with Howard Berg, who's the world's fastest reader. Do you know Howard, by the way?
I don't, but I would love an introduction.
You should have him on the show. He is the most fascinating person in the world. Guinness Book of World Records. He read the Expert Secrets book live in under 4 minutes, and then I quizzed him. He knew it's insane. He's amazing. But I had him out to Boise to hang out with him a couple times now. He's such a cool person. And I asked him, it's like at dinner time, I was like, I got a question for you. I'm like, what's your opinion on God? Because he's read like 30,000 books. And he kind of smiles. He's like, he's like, most people, he's like, they read one book and then they base their opinion on that. He's like, the problem is that you're looking through like the one lens of the one author. He's like, what I like to do is like, I like to read 30 books. I read all of them and also have this holistic view of what's happening. So he's like, my view on God is different than most people because I've read every religious text that I can find. I know everything. And then he went on for like an hour and told me his views on God. And it was like the most fascinating thing in the world. Like, it was so cool. And I think the same thing is a problem with a lot of people. They come out there and like, I have an idea, and they go and start teaching it and selling it. And it's like, it's good, but it's very one directional, right? When you start as a reporter, you can interview a bunch of people, and it's the equivalent of you reading 10 or 20 or 30 books on a topic. And then from that, you can create your own frameworks, your own ideas, your own concepts, as opposed to just being very, very singular focused. And so I think that's why it's so important it's for everybody. It's part of their journey of like becoming an expert, becoming like a thought leader, whatever, is putting in the time to find out the different options and find out all the different things and put it to the test and try things out. I got started my business back 18 years ago. I was fascinated by this marketing stuff, but I didn't know anything about marketing. So I was like, okay, well, who are the people that did? And I found them all online. I made a whole list of them, and all of them, like, you go to their sites and they were charged like, I don't know, 20 grand an hour for consulting. I was like, well, I can't afford that. So I messaged like, hey, can I interview you for my, and this is pre-podcast, like, can you interview for my telesummit I'm doing? And they're like, oh, sure. I'm like, oh, I'm getting an hour with this person to pick their brains, ask them any questions I want. And I was like, I'm getting free consulting from all these geniuses. And I did that. I interviewed, man, I probably interviewed 30, 40 different people. And it just shifted. Like what I thought was the truth, shifted. And all of a sudden I realized, like, man, all these pieces, like everyone had pieces of the truth. And when I had this whole thing, it was like, I have a holistic view that now I can go and create my own ideas, my own frameworks based on, and share it. Like when you read any of my books, Dotcom Secrets, Expert Secrets, Traffic Secrets, I try to give credit as much as I can remember. But like every time I learn something, here's the people I learned it from. And based on all these things, this is what I kind of discovered. And this is the piece I want to share with you guys today. And so it gives you, I don't know, I think it's just a more interesting way to learn, and definitely a more interesting way to be able to teach later on when you do take the next role.
Wow. Well, I feel exactly as you did in those early stages right now. BookThinkers started because we had a vision of what we wanted to do for education and how we could transform the way that people learn and self-educate, because books changed my life. And so now I'm having these amazing conversations now that I have enough credibility to get into conversations with people like yourself. And it's helping to reframe the way that I look at business. Like, look, I've read 40 sales books, and I just had an epiphany when I read your book. So there's always an opportunity to learn and sharpen the saw. And then once you do get that holistic view, things change. Your vision changes of, you might have started with a product in mind, and then it completely changes over time. And so it's exactly what happened. And I've enjoyed every second of it. And so now I've got a couple of personal questions. One for me. I have been balancing family and business and personal growth, development, and life in general, relaxation. Like, that balance is very hard to find. And I know that you have a fantastic family, you have a fantastic business, and you've grown so much over the years by listening to people and reporting on what's made them successful. So do you have any strategies that you apply to your life, or ways that you divide up time that make it easier to manage?
Yeah. I say there's two core things. There's a lot of little things, but there's two that had like probably the biggest shifts for me. Number one is, and I'm not perfect at this by any stretch. You ask my wife, she's like, he's not perfect at that, but I try really, really hard, is I try to be present with wherever I'm at, right? So like if I'm at work, like I'm at work, like everything, like it's focused, and that's where I'm at. I'm not texting my wife and calling my kid and doing a million things. Like I'm there. But when I get home, that means like I'm present there. Like when I walk in the door at the garage, come into the house, it's like, okay, business Russell's done. He's shifting over here. It's like, okay, this is Dad Russell. I come in, and from 6 till 9 or whatever till I finally get my kids to go to bed, which now we've been in quarantine. It's like 4 a.m. But it's like, this is my time with my kids. So I try to be present and be there with them and like 100%. So they know that I'm there. I care. And then when the kids are in bed, it's like shifted. It's like, this is my wife and I time. This is where we're focusing on each other. And it's like, and like the kids can be crying in the room. It's like, I don't care. Like this is our time. And I try to like to shift time and be present wherever you're at. I think the reason why most people are super inefficient and can't get stuff done, cause like, think about this, like I've got 5 kids. I got a beautiful wife. I've got church responsibilities. I've written 3 books in the last 5 years. I've built a software. Like there's so many things happening. We got 400 employees. Like if I'm dabbling, if I'm like in this conversation right now and I'm texting my friends and I'm like messaging them, I tell them like I can't be effective. I can't be efficient. Right. So it's like wherever you're at, like being super present and just doing that. And so that's one of them. And the second thing is understanding like team dynamics and yourself, right? Like there's no way I could have done any of these things by myself. And I think it's funny. People are like, yeah, Russell, when you invented Clickfunnels, I'm like, I don't know how to code. Like I didn't invent nothing. Like I what I mean? It's understanding like that, there's different tiers of people, and there's none are better or worse. They're all essential for you to be able to grow and create whatever you want, right? So the first tier is strategic thinkers. That's someone like me who's like, I'm very strategic. I can figure things out. I can see vision. I can see stuff like that, right? So the strategic thinkers. The next tier are the managers, and they're the ones who take the strategic thinking and they take stuff and they can manage the process. They build checklists and Excel sheets and like all that stuff that just stresses me out, right? They can manage the process. And then the third tier are the workers, and they're the ones who actually do the thing. And I used to think like, oh, the strategic thinker is the most important, or oh, the manager is the most, but it's not. Like all the people are essential. And so in any division of our company, we have to have like, hey, in this division, this tier, like who's the strategic thinker? Like there's got to be someone. If it's not, then it's going to be me, right? And then from there, like who's the person who's going to take this strategic thought and manage it, and then who are the people who are going to actually do it? And so in our company, I built, there's like, I'm the CEO, and there's the 4 or 5 tiers, and there's a strategic thinker at each tier, and then there's management and there's people. And so for us, like we can come out with an idea, and really quickly, I can like, I can have a strategic idea, tell my strategic guy in that part of the company, he gets the vision, he innovates on it, makes it even better. And then there's people that go through and can do it all. And I think that a lot of times we think that because we're the entrepreneur, because it's our business, that we're the strategic thinker. And a lot of times we're not. Maybe you're really good at managing. Maybe you're really good at doing. And if so, if you're a really good worker, like you need to get a manager to manage you, and you need to get a strategic thinker to give you vision. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing like, I have to be the strategic thinker because it's my company. Like, no, if that's not your strength, like go to where your strength is, and then surround yourself with the other personality types, the other people. And then, man, it is amazing how quickly you can move and how much you can get done in such a short period of time when you get the right people around you. So those are probably the 2 biggest things, is being super present and then building a team of people that complement the things that you're not good at, that they're good at. And, and then you can run fast, really, really fast.
Yeah, wow, that is fantastic advice. Again, I'll probably go back and listen to that every day for the next couple of weeks. It reminds me a lot of the E-Myth Revisited, which is a book that talks about sort of similar 3 tiers. And I also like, entrepreneurs always try to be that strategic thinker, and sometimes maybe they're the best technician and they need to put somebody else in place to handle the higher level stuff. And so putting ego aside and making sure that the business is successful and that you're helping other people, like that is your priority. And so thank you for answering that. I'm going to reflect on that a lot, and I appreciate that. And so what are some of your favorite books? I always ask people sort of 3 tiers, and I know you reference a few of your favorite books in Dotcom Secrets, but I'm interested in maybe if you have any favorite health books, favorite wealth books, and then favorite love books, love being friends, family, relationships, and self-reflection. Do you have a favorite book or a couple favorite books that might fall into one of those categories?
Yeah. And books are like whatever you're reading time is like your favorite, and it shifts around. But from a business standpoint, I've been studying a lot recently is Salesforce and Mark Benioff, and they've got a book called Behind the Clouds. It's kind of like his playbook, how he built Salesforce initially. I really, really, really like that book. Like I've just been geeking out on it because it's been really fun. I'm also a huge fan of 37 Signals, which is now Basecamp, and all their books like Remote and Rewind, and like those books are like literally ClickFunnels is a remote company because Jason Fried wrote Remote. Like I tried to get everyone to move to Boise, and then that book came out, And my business partner Todd read, he's like, we're all virtual. I'm like, no, and I was so mad. But now it's like, oh, I am so grateful that we're a remote team with 400 plus employees, because coronavirus hits and we're all like, all right, well, just stay at your house. Don't, like, all right, we're good to go, right? You know what I mean? Anyway, those some business books I love. From like a health book, I'm a big Dave Asprey fan, which is kind of ironic because I'm a Mormon, so I don't drink coffee, and he's the inventor of bulletproof coffee. But I really resonate with him. Like, become friends with him, and like just the methodologies he teaches. So I had to like figure out like my version of the different things. But I just like anything biohacking, things that related are just really fun. And I've got all these nerdy biohacking gadgets and gizmos here. I have the weird sunglasses and all these things just to like increase performance. So like his stuff.
I'm with you 200%. I've read 2 of Dave Asprey's books, and I've implemented like 50 things from them.
Yeah, those are really, really good. And then relationships, man, I'm trying to think. I don't know if I don't read as much relationship stuff. I do listen to podcasts. One of my favorite, Stacey and Paul Martino have a podcast called the Relationship Development, I believe it's called. It's like personal development, but it's relationship development. And it's light years ahead of anything else I've ever read or studied. And I keep trying to convince Stacey to write a book because the world needs it. But that's been from the personal development, like relationship with myself and other people. Like, that's been my favorite ones for listening to. So yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you for the recommendations. I know the BookThinkers family and anybody listening today will appreciate that. And it's so funny too, because I use Salesforce and Basecamp every single day for my business, and I haven't read any books either by Mark or any of the Basecamp folks. So I will gonna add them to my list. And then so 2 more things. I want to talk a couple funny wrestling stories. We're both wrestlers. I was not nearly as successful as you were, but I started wrestling because I was a football player. And at my high school, if you were a football player, one of your off-season sports basically had to be wrestling. And so I took up wrestling when I was a sophomore in high school. And my junior year, I ended up wrestling in states. And you, in the book, you talk a little bit about how when you go to wrestling camps, you learn wrestling camp moves. But those moves don't actually help you. It's the fundamentals that you need to be, you need to have a couple good moves in all 3 positions, and you need to practice them 10 trillion times. But the wrestling camp moves are fun. And I remember I went to Boston University, and I was learning from some mentor of mine, some college wrestler, like this flying headlock that was so it would never actually be used. But then we had a little wrestling tournament, like King of the Hill style tournament. And I used it, and I got pinned within like 3 seconds of the start of the match. And so I was wondering if you had just any, for the wrestlers out there, any fun stories that they would appreciate.
Yes. So it's funny. When I was growing up, my dad was a wrestler too. And he used to always tell stories about the great Dan Gable, right? And so like my whole life is like, I want to meet Dan Gable. I have to meet him. So as I was in high school, we all, like me and all my buddies, started saving up money to go to an Iowa wrestling camp, because specifically we wanted to shake Dan Gable's hand. I was like, if I shake his hand, I will be a better wrestler. So we saved up all of our money and we go to this camp. And Dan Gable, don't know him, you're not a wrestler. He's like the Michael Jordan of our sport. Like he, won the Olympics. Nobody scored on him. Like he only lost one match his entire high school and college career. Like he's like our Michael Jordan. So we go to this camp, and they're all the Iowa wrestlers who are teaching it. And I did eventually get to meet Dan and shake his hand, which was like, I still have not washed his hand to this day. Just kidding. But they were showing this move, and the guy's like, hey, this is the move. Like, don't tell your high school coaches I'm teaching you this, because like they're not going to like it. And this is only do this if you're down by like 10 and you got like one last shot to pull it off. And if you do, it's going to be amazing. I don't even know the name of it. It's this weird thing where you're on top of the guy and they blow the whistle, and you switch hands from here and you dive underneath them and you like peanut roll through and like grab their stomach, and it's this random thing. And we thought it was the coolest move ever. And so we practiced it. And finally it was one match. Same kind of thing where like I was down by a bunch, and I was like, all right, here comes the Hail Mary. It's going to be amazing. And I go to do the move, and it literally, instead of flipping him his back, it put me directly on my back where I couldn't move. And the guy ended up coming on top of me and pinning me. And I remember coming off, my coach was like, what were you thinking? I was like, it's a move we learned at Iowa camp. And he was just like, you are never going to another Gable camp again. I was like, oh no. Anyway, so yes, they look cool and they impress your friends, but in actual competition, it's not typically good. And every camp,
so
anyone's been
happy
a
I
wrestling
asked that
camp, there's
question.
always moves like that. Like all the wrestling, let me show you cool when I learned. Yeah. So it's kind of funny.
I'm very happy I asked that question. Well, this was a great conversation, Russell. I appreciate your time so much. And For any audience members that are interested in learning more about you or about Clickfunnels, what do they do? What do you recommend?
I think the biggest thing to get them excited and geek out is the same thing you did, and go read the Dotcom Secrets book. And it's a free offer. Use cover shipping handling. If you go to dotcomsecrets.com, it's spelled out DOTCOM secrets.com. You pay $7.95 for the hardbound version, and it'll give you the foundation. Like this is the first decade of my life was like mastering these skills. This is the book. This is the new updated hardbound version. I rewrote it late last year, so it's like it's the stuff that's working right now. When I wrote Dotcom Secrets the first time, it was like my experience with funnels, and here's what I did. You're now in Clickfunnels. We have over 100,000 customers. So I have a chance to see everybody's funnels and what's working at a huge mass scale that no one else has ever seen before. And so the new updated version is like, based on everything I'm seeing and everything we're learning, this is what works. And so then, as you know, there's 10 different funnels. So if you're selling a book, there's the book funnel. If you're selling a course, here's the funnel you use. If you're selling coaching, consulting, physical products, like no matter what it is you're selling, there's a funnel that you plug into that'll help you grow your company quickly. And so Dotcom Secrets is the first one to start off with. It'll give you guys a foundation and get you excited about sales funnels and how they work for you and for your business.
Appreciate the time today. Hope to have you back on soon.
Awesome, man. Thanks so much.
If you've made it this far, thank you so much for listening to today's conversation with Russell. If you found any value in this conversation, please share it with a friend. You never know if this conversation could help change somebody's life. So go ahead. It only takes a couple seconds. Before we jump off, I wanted to note that BookThinkers is an online community. Our biggest network is on Instagram, but we're also an educational technology company enabling readers to achieve more and live better. So for more information on our mobile application, our shop, our social pages, or our mission, please check out www.bookthinkers.com. As always, remember that real learning requires education and behavior change. So it's not just enough to listen to this podcast or to read one of Russell's books. You've got to implement that information and really change your behavior. So with that, I'm signing off, and I hope you found some value in this episode of Book Thinkers, Life-Changing Books.